All right, welcome to my channel, College Football Focus, where we talk about everything college football. Everything from players, matchups, predictions, you name it, we're gonna cover it here. So let's get into it. All right, so for this video, what we wanna do is we're gonna do some college football previews, conference previews, take a look at each team, kind of go over their strengths and weaknesses, maybe going into the season. With preseason, it's kind of hard to, predict what each team's going to do, but I think it's fun to kind of look into their recruiting, who they got coming back, what they did well last year, and kind of look into that and make some predictions to see how it might pan out this year. So I wanted to start out with Big 12. This is going to be kind of my preference because me growing up around the Provo area, I'm a big BYU fan at heart, and super excited for them to be joining the Big 12 next year. So I wanted to take a look at the conference, see which teams are in for a good year, which teams are in for a building year, and hopefully have time before the season starts to do some other conferences as well, because I enjoy looking at it. So let's get right into it. This is going to be in not my ranking order, but we're just going to go alphabetical. So first team, we're going to start out with Baylor. Now, we all know they are losing their quarterback, Gary Bohannon, who went to the transfer portal after losing the job this training camp to their new projected starter, Blake Shapen. I did watch a lot of that Big 12 championship game, and he looked sharp. He had a great game. I think he kind of showed there that the stage isn't too big for him. He can step up, so I don't have any doubts about him stepping into that starting quarterback position as long as he can stay healthy. He did get beat up at the end of that game, but yeah, I think Baylor's in a great spot going forward. I expect big things from them. All right, so next up on the list, we got Iowa State. So Iowa State, coming off a year where they had a lot of expectations. They had a decent year, kind of pulled out some big wins, obviously not up to their expectations. I'm pretty sure they were preseason top 10 going into the season. We all know, take preseason with a grain of salt, take these predictions with a grain of salt. But they had a lot of expectations for the first time in a while. And going into this year, those expectations kind of go away. And I think that's where Iowa State's kind of comfortable, kind of playing the underdog. Seems like they kind of overachieved for the past few years, and then they got those expectations put on them. Lights got brighter, target got on their back maybe, but this year they kind of maybe going back into that comfortable position of being counted out, and I think that that could prove to be a good thing for them. Obviously they got a great coach in Matt Campbell. He's going to get the best out of every talent he gets, and they do have a good recruiting class coming in. So obviously we know they're losing their starter for the past 4 years, Brock Purdy. I believe the winningest quarterback they've had there. Hunter Deckers looks to step up and replace Brock. He's had some time to learn. I think he should be fine coming in, staying healthy. And then they have their star defensive edge coming in, Will McDonald's. Expect him to make a huge impact, All-American last year, one of the best edge rushers in the country. Expect him to hold it down on defense. Obviously, some downsides. They are losing that quarterback that we talked about, Brock Purdy. That's going to be a huge hole to fill. And then Breece Hall, one of the top running backs. Some may say the best running back in the class last year that went into the NFL. Those are some question marks going in. I know they do have a good recruiting class coming in, so really I expect them to do well. We'll have to see. Like I said, unproven talent there. All right, next up we got Kansas. Have struggled in the conference these past decade or so, but we did see a little bit momentum from them last year. That big win at Texas, the big upset, they got it done. And then, they did lose their last couple games, but only from a combined 9 points. They had some good showings from their young quarterback, Jalen Daniels. So I expect them to be on an upward trajectory this next season. Got a lot of returning production, a lot of experience. So expect them to take a step forward. I think they only had 2 wins last year. So maybe sneak out a conference win or 2, win some non-con games. But one of the bright spots on that defense is safety Kenny Logan, who led the Big 12 in tackles last year. So expect him to make a huge, his presence known on that defense side of the ball. Obviously with Kansas, it's gonna be tough. It's tough to compete in the Big 12, and we know them as to be the basketball powerhouse. But like I said, I do expect them to make some strides forward, make some progress, see them on an upward trajectory. All right, K-State. K-State coming in last year, I think they were around middle of the pack. I believe they had a big bowl game win though last year. One of the huge upsides to them is they have some dynamic players in the skill positions coming back. Obviously Deuce Vaughn, their running back, stud, All-American. Last year had 1,404 yards rushing, 468 yards receiving. So he's going to pick up right where he left off from, would be one of the best backs in the country, let alone in the Big 12. And then their quarterback, Adrian Martinez, another dynamic playmaker. I know a lot of people like him. A lot of people want to see him cut down on the turnovers, which he does have to do. But if he can do that, be smart with the football, distribute to the playmakers, and make some plays of his own, I think this offense could be pretty dangerous. They do have a tough schedule, so non-conference game against Missouri, that's going to be a fun one to watch. Ex-Big 12 member, now SEC member. But that should be a fun game. But they do have 5 road games in conference. So they're going to be at Oklahoma, at Iowa State, at TCU, Baylor, and West Virginia. So they're going to have some good players. They're going to have some, they're going to be in every game on the schedule. But the schedule does look pretty tough. But if they can sneak some out, they're going to be right there in the top of the conference, I think. Some things to look for them to capitalize on special teams. Malik Knowles, one of the best returners in the game. I think he can make a huge impact with them, giving them good starting field position, start their drives, getting them in easy scoring positions to start these things. And then they got a solid field goal kicker in Chris Tennant. So yeah, look for them to flip fields, make some plays on special teams, get their playmakers into easy positions, and capitalize off that. That's going to keep them in games, keep them close, steal some. All right, next up on the list, Oklahoma. Obviously, Oklahoma on paper, they're going to have studs all over the field every single year, year in, year out. That's just what Oklahoma does. They don't have a lot of returning production, but that's the name of the game for Oklahoma. Reload every single year. Obviously, a pretty turbulent offseason for them, losing the head coach, starting quarterback to USC. I know that didn't feel good for them, but they got Brent Venables coming in. I think he's going to be a good leader for them. I think they'll be in great hands. And then they do get the transfer, Dillon Gabriel, who we saw at UCF a while ago. Had some great years before that brutal injury. And the great thing is they hire offensive coordinator Jeff Levy, who was at UCF with him. So that's going to make the transition for Dillon pretty seamless, I think. I think he's going to step in, have a great year. We've seen what he can do. As long as he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be great for them. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they have 4 of the top 5 linebackers returning. So look for them to be solid, both in the passing game and running. I feel like that's kind of, I haven't followed it so closely, but I feel like Oklahoma always has a high-powered offense, and maybe sometimes other weaknesses every year is their defense. So if they can tighten that up, look for this to be a playoff team easy. Cons or stuff to look out for. You know, the defensive line does lose 3 of their top contributors from last year. New staff coming in. Like I said, I think they made it as easy as possible for these players to be able to develop in this new system. A lot of familiarity there. So I don't think that's going to be a huge deal. I think Oklahoma's due for a big year. And then I expect Eric Gray and Marcus Major to come in, fill in the gaps from losing their quarterback Kennedy Brooks, 1,200 yards rushing last year. So that's going to be a lot of shoes, a big hole to fill. But I think they'll be fine. I think Oklahoma's going to be obviously every year contenders for not only the Big 12 championship but the national championship. So this year's no different for them. All right, next up we got Oklahoma State, the Cowboys. This looks like a great team. You know, they came within inches last year of taking the conference championship and possibly going to the playoff. Literally inches. That game was incredible. Obviously, they got returning starter Spencer Sanders. I look for him to have a great year. He shows what he can do all year. You know, at times, there has been a consistency issue with him. Looked like they had a tough time moving the ball against certain defenses, keeping the turnovers down. You know, he's going to be a veteran presence at the quarterback position. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be just fine. Obviously, Oklahoma State never have trouble moving the ball. High-flying offense, they'll be just fine. Big questions for them is going to be on defense this year. 6 of the top 8 tacklers leaving from last year. So there's going to be a lot of shoes to fill, a lot of question marks over there. So if they can have their recruiting class and the returning players step up and take on bigger positions of leadership, they should be at the top of the conference again. I don't see why they can't be contenders for winning the whole thing as far as conference goes. All right, next up, TCU Horned Frogs. Obviously coming in here, we got Sonny Dykes to take over. He's got a handful to start out his coaching career there, so he's got a quarterback battle going on down at TCU. Max Duggan is a proven starter, you know, veteran, 29 starts under his belt. Does have 63% completion rating. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards in his career, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So, you know, he's going to be a veteran that they can count on. Other option they got is Chandler Morris. You know, he's a highly touted recruit, transfer from Oklahoma. He only played 4 games. He did have 700 yards passing, 3 touchdowns and 0 picks. So pretty good stats. I mean, this kid's good. Took down Baylor for them in that upset. So it's going to be fun. I don't think we're going to be able to see who's going to be the starter until about the end of fall camp. It's going to be a tough battle. Some of the question marks that TCU is going to have to address is defensive line of scrimmage. Nose guard Corey Bethley, defensive end Mathis, Earl Barkett. So on the defense, they've got a lot of production missing from last year. Expect big things from TCU. You know, they always have a good year competing for the top half of the conference. This year could be a transition year for them, but things to watch out for, you know, their running back, Kendre Miller. Look for him to step in and replace Zach Evans. Last year he did average 7.5 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns. That's awesome. So expect him to keep it going, and alongside an offensive line that has a lot of returning starters, 113 starts under the combined unit. So expect them to be able to run the ball, protect the quarterback. That's going to be huge for them on offense. Yeah, should have a great year. Really excited to see what they do. All right, next up, Texas Longhorns. So obviously they do have a lot of talent across the board, much like Oklahoma. You know, those two historic programs are always going to get the top recruits in the country. This year is no different for them. Quinn Ewers, transfer from Ohio State, #1 overall recruit. We haven't seen him play yet, but he's supposed to be a stud. So we'll look to see how he does. And then led by their stud running back as well, Bijan Robinson. Last year, he had a huge year, 1,100 yards rushing, 11 touchdowns. Their wide receiver, Xavier Worthy, almost 1,000 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns. I expect this offense to be high flying, top of the country. The big question mark again is the defense. Last year they struggled all over the field. So I know there's no lack of talent there. They just need to get it together and execute. Second year, I believe. Yeah, second year for Steve Sarkisian to get this implemented. Now they do bring in Gary Patterson, which is one of the things I'm saying to look out for. Obviously, he's a great defensive mind, so he's coming in as kind of an advisor on defense. So I do expect them to be much improved on the defensive side of the ball, and if that's the case, look out for this Texas Longhorns team alongside Oklahoma and others in the top of the conference, Baylor. They're going to be competing not only for the Big 12 championship, but to get a spot in that playoff. I know every year, Texas is back, it's a running meme, but it's hard to deny. I mean, Quinn Ewers is a huge question mark, but they do have a lot of proven talent coming back on this team. And then if they can just figure out the defense and execute the way they should be hard to beat any given week. Now, next up, out of Lubbock, Red Raiders of Texas Tech. First year head coach Joey McGuire steps in to lead these Red Raiders, see what they can conjure up this year. One of their bright spots is going to be at the running back position. Todd Brooks, Roderick Thompson look to be the main ball carriers for them this year. I expect them to have a great season. The only issue I see here is the offensive line does need to replace 3 starters on that center, tackle, and guard position. So if they can fill those gaps there, I expect them to have a great season rushing the ball. Obviously, with Texas Tech, they want to be high flying, throw the ball, quick, fast offense, high paced. But if they can find a way to establish the run, that'll open it up the secondary for them for some big explosive plays. They always have athletic wide receivers, so they're always fun to watch. Some things to look for. So some things to look out for with Texas Tech. They are going to have a quarterback battle with some top recruits, Tyler Show and Donovan Smith. It seems like Tyler's more of a pocket passer, whereas Donovan's more of a playmaker type quarterback who can throw the ball, make plays with his feet, kind of more dynamic. But we'll see who wins the starting job. They are going to have plenty of targets. They got a Texas A&M transfer from Baylor Cub, and then some big wide receivers in Miles Price, Gerald Bradley, true freshman. Look for him to make a big impact in his first year. I think Texas Tech is going to have a great year moving the ball. They can hold it down on defense. I expect them to be competing for the top half of the conference this year. All right, last but not least, we got West Virginia. Head coach Neil Brown has said in interviews that he believes the running back room over in West Virginia is one of the most talented he's had. So that's going to be Lynn J. Dixon, Tony Mathis. Look for them to be able to run the ball and get some points on the board that way. They do have a tough schedule coming in. The rivalry games against some old foes, Pitt and West Virginia. Those are going to be some fun matchups for them. But it does make for a tough schedule. They do have road games against Texas, Texas Tech, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State. and then they do have a lot of question marks on defense. Only 4 returning starters for them. Although defensive line should be a strong point with Taj Alston and Cincy transfer, I think it's Zaki Lawton. Look for them to make some impact coming in and holding down, stopping the run on the other side of the ball. Some things to look out for. Obviously, quarterback transfer JT Daniels. He's had an up and down career, been to a lot of schools. Hopefully gets into the right system here, finds his footing, and has a great year. And then they do got a big wide receiver, Bryce Ford-Wheaton, stepping up to lead the group this year after losing some production. But I do look for him to have a big year with JT. West Virginia, I think there's could be a building year for them, but I think this conference could be very competitive. Makes it one of the most fun conferences to watch in the country, top to bottom. I think there's a lot of great matchups. So overall, Big 12, it's going to be a really fun year to watch, like it always is. Very competitive, fun brand of football all across the board. Great rivalries, great fan bases. So this is going to be a fun year for them. Ultimately, I see Oklahoma returning to the top, taking the conference, and with that, getting into the playoff. But it's going to be close. Could really go either way. Could go Baylor again, defending champions. Could be Texas if they can figure out that defense and execute better, because they're going to be dangerous every year. Oklahoma State was right there last year, inches away from that title game. So look for them to come back with a vengeance. So all in all, it's going to be a fun year. I'm just excited for it all to start. So yeah, like this video. If you liked it, give me some suggestions down in the comments. Hopefully more videos to come soon, and have a fun year with college football. All right, we'll see you guys.